On today's show, we interview Robert Angel, who's the creator of the Pictionary game, the game that so many of you have played with your family and friends, the game Pictionary. He's the founder of the Pictionary company and the game, and he joins us to drop an endless buffet of knowledge bombs. Now, he's got knowledge bombs about why ideas are easy and why execution is everything.
Having an idea is one thing. So when we started sketching the words, we're having a ball, and I thought, okay, this would make a good board game. Right? That's my aha moment. That's my epiphany. And until I started working on it, it didn't. It was just an idea. And so I decided. I started overthinking. So instead of getting started, I started telling myself, negative self-talk. I'm just a waiter. I don't have a plan. I don't have the skills necessary to do this.
Right.
And so it was like I put it away. I started buying into my own negativity.
He talks about how to go from having an idea and actually turning that idea into reality. He talks about the importance of being resourceful as opposed to just looking for the most resources.
When you do 1,000 games, there's 500 cards per game, so that's 500,000 game cards. So they're supposed to come from the printer, sorted in groups of 500 for the 1,000 games. When they came from the printer, they came 1,000 of card 1, 1,000 of card 2. It's like they're not collated, they're not sorted. I freaked out. I did not handle it well. But we had to figure it out.
He talks about why you just have to roll up your sleeves and get it done. He talks about how to deal with rejection and how he was able to go out there and sell the Pictionary game to people all over this great country, one rejection at a time. And then he shares why he decided it was ultimately time to sell the company and to move on to the next phase of his career. Ladies and gentlemen, grab a pen and a pad and get prepared to take notes as we interview the founder of Pictionary.
What did you draw?
A cucumber, a moose, and goose pimples.
Goose pimples? How?
Well, goose and pimples.
That's a bad goose.
Yeah, but they got it, didn't they?
Pictionary, the most fun you can have with a pencil.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes, Thrive Nation, it is a very special occasion because we are interviewing the man who has made so much fun possible in living rooms all throughout this great country. He's the creator of Pictionary, Robert Angel. Welcome onto the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
I am fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man. Okay, well, let me ask you this. When did you first have the idea to start the game now known as Pictionary?
I came up with Pictionary the concept in 1982, and I launched it in 1985.
82, you had the big idea. Now, my understanding is you kind of worked on this idea for a while. You kind of crafted it. When did you first have the idea? Or I guess, where were you when you first had the idea?
I first had the idea just to graduated from college, and I didn't know what I was going to do with that shiny new business degree. But I knew that I wanted to work for myself.
Yeah.
My dad had been fired from his job, and so I thought, I'm not going to let somebody have that sway over me. So I'm looking for an opportunity.
Yeah. And
moved in with 3 buddies after college, and one of them said, "Hey, you want to play a game? We call it charades on paper." And I said, "Sure." And I didn't think that the opportunity was just to have fun, and so I started sketching words out of the dictionary. It was that simple. That's the physical how it got started.
Now, these guys you lived with, where did you live at the time? What state were you in?
Spokane, Washington.
Really? Spokane is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. How long did you live out there?
I was there for about 20 years.
That's John Stockton country there, sir. That is an incredible place to live.
It is John Stockton country. Yeah, his dad owns a bar up there that we all used to frequent. It was a great place to grow up.
Did you like John Stockton?
How do you not like John Stockton?
Well, I
I
think
was, you know, I was a Sonics fan,
you're
but
right.
as a human, as a player, who he was fantastic. You got to like John Stockton.
Now, for the listeners out there that don't know who John Stockton was,
Utah with the lead. Stockton right to left. Stock to the middle. Back to Carl. The mailman. Drive. Hang. Score. Stockton to below. 26 assists. He needs 4 at a time.
he averaged 10.5 assists per game. He's 6'1", and he just was unbelievable with the pick and roll. He was the pick and roll. He did. Do you remember watching the pick and roll?
Oh, him and Malone and the whole 9 yards. Yeah, they were quite a show for a long time.
How would you draw the pick and roll?
Pretty badly. I think we should just get something out in the open before we get started.
Okay, here we go.
I am terrible at my own game.
This just in, the founder of Pictionary is terrible at his own game. That's okay. Okay, so now you at some point you started to develop traction with this. I say traction as in we always tell people, the idea is great, but it's the execution of the idea that's better. Can you tell me, like, when did you start to gain traction with this Pictionary game?
Well, yeah, as you say, it's having an idea is one thing. So when we started sketching the words, we're having a ball, and I thought, okay, this would make a good board game, right? That's my aha moment. That's my epiphany. And until I started working on it, it didn't, it was just an idea. And so I decided, I started overthinking it. So instead of getting started, I started telling myself, negative self-talk. I'm just a waiter. I don't have a plan. I don't have the skills necessary to do this.
Right.
And so, so it was like I put it away. I started buying into my own negativity. And so I overthought it. I basically panicked. And instead of getting started, I shut down. I put it away. And I had to get away from the problem. I had to stop thinking about it. So I physically removed myself. I put myself, as I call it, in timeout. I stopped thinking about Pictionary. Stopped thinking about how I could do this, business plans and everything else. I went to movies. I hung out with my friends. So a couple of weeks later, I went back to Pictionary and I said, okay, how can I break this down into the simplest, easiest first step to get this whole thing started?
Got it.
And so it was the word list, creating words. Right? That's what drove the game. And I had everything I needed in front of me in the house. It wasn't that I had to overthink the next step. I grabbed a pad of paper, a pencil, and a dictionary, old worn-out dictionary. I went in the backyard and opened up the dictionary. And I scanned the first page, and the first word I saw that made sense for me was aardvark.
Aardvark.
Aardvark. So I'm looking at this. I got the pad of paper. I write down the word aardvark. I literally started to shake. I broke into a sweat because by writing down the word aardvark, I was no longer a waiter. I was a game inventor. That was it, by one simple word. So that's how the whole Pictionary dream, the whole Pictionary saga, everything about it got started was simply writing down the word aardvark, and everything went from there. I wrote a second word, and a third, and a fourth, and that's how it just built into what it became.
Now, when you built something into what it became, walk us through the messy middle. What was the hardest part of going from writing down these words into getting this thing to market? I think a lot of people have ideas, but they never take them to market. What was the hardest part of going from, the refining of the idea into actually getting this out there?
I think the hardest part was actually a big plus. The hardest part was we had got a couple of partners, but had no idea what we were doing. There was no manual for how to do any of it, how to market and sell and produce and all these things. So we just kind of made them up as we went along. And I think that was actually our superpower. I think that was a huge plus, not knowing what the next step was. So we just took it task after task after task. The physically putting the games together or producing the first 1,000 games was a difficult task a very difficult physical task that we had to overcome.
And how did you make the games? Like, how did you physically do it?
We came to the conclusion we needed 9 different parts to the game: boxes and wraps and boards and dice. And so I went through the internet of the day, which were the yellow pages, and I literally looked up the word boxes. There were boxes, so I found a box maker. And then we physically found a pencil, and then we found die and cubes and all the rest of it, and had 9 different companies supplying with parts, all shipped to my apartment. Whoa! And we, everything I owned, fit into the back bedroom to make room for all this stuff. And tells you how much stuff I didn't own. And we physically hand assembled the first 1,000 games by ourselves in my apartment.
Oh, wow. Well, now, okay, so you made 10, you said 10,000?
1,000.
1,000. Okay, so 1,000. Now, when you make 1,000 of anything, it's got to be monotonous, tedious. There got to be errors everywhere. You got to be making mistakes. What was kind of the craziest thing that happened as you were attempting to make 1,000 games by hand?
Well, I'm laughing now. So we had sent out the invitations for the launch, and when you do 1,000 games, there's 500 cards per game, so that's 500,000 game cards. So they were supposed to come from the printer, sorted in groups of 500 for the 1,000 games. When they came from the printer, they came 1,000 of card 1, 1,000 of card 2. It's like they're not collated, they're not sorted. So I just freaked. I won't lie, I freaked out. I did not handle it well. But we had to figure it out, my 2 partners and myself, because we'd already sent out the invitations. So I'm going, all right, let's do it by hand. Okay, that's 500,000 game cards by hand in my apartment. And what we wound up doing was getting 6 8-foot tables, and then we went to Nordstrom and got 170 shoe boxes. And we set up the shoe boxes in a zigzag fashion around my apartment and hand collated and sorted 500,000 game cards in 16-hour days, over 6 days, and we got it done.
Did you go into Nordstrom's and you just said, hey, can you give me boxes of shoes? I mean, or shoe boxes? How did you get those?
Yeah. I mean, we have another experience with Nordstrom's, which was really our big break that I can talk about in a little bit. But we literally got in my car, drove to Nordstrom's, banged on their back door, and said, hey, do you have any shoe boxes you want to get rid of? And they did. And they gave us 170 of them. I mean, it wasn't rocket science, didn't overthink it, just went in and they said, sure. And we wound up filling up the car and bringing them back.
Okay, so you now you have the shoe boxes. You're assembling these things. When did you start to get some sales momentum going, or how did you go about getting some sales mojo going?
I think I mentioned earlier, there was no manual for any of this, so I just kind of went with what felt right. My sales calls were, how can we put this? I figured if you sold anything, you might as well be selling Pictionary. I didn't ask what the question was about selling to toy stores or Toys R Us. I just kind of put the game in my arm, and I would walk down the street and walk into any store. I walked into a real estate company, and I said, hey, you guys should take on 6 games and put them on your table so when a customer comes in and going to buy a house, it looks like somebody lives there, family values. They took 6. I went to pharmacies. I went to bookstores. I went to Nordstrom. So I went to all these different places. But what it did was put Pictionary in a place that people wouldn't usually find games. So it was disruptive, but it was alternative distribution. So back then, if you wanted a game, you had to go to a toy store, there were only like 3 or 4 in all of Seattle, or Toys R Us and all the rest of it. So unless you really wanted a board game, you didn't see it. So we just went to all these places where people wouldn't normally see a game, and gained and got that distribution. That was a big way for us to get ahead.
So a lot of listeners would say, Oh man, you went to hundreds of stores. How did you? I know a lot of our listeners would want to know, how did you deal with the rejection of? Did you get a lot of rejection, or did everybody just say yes right away?
I learned very early on not to take it personally, not to take the rejection personally, because I knew Pictionary was a great game. I knew it was a fun game. I knew, it was all about Pictionary. I knew that people wanted this game. So if a buyer didn't take the game, it wasn't because of me. It wasn't because of my sales prowess. It wasn't because of anything. It was because they just didn't want the game, and that was okay. So I didn't take it personally. So when I was rejected, I go, okay, next store. And I'd march down the street with the game in my hand. And to be honest, with each rejection, I learned to understand why I was being rejected. And I put that in my quiver for the next sales call. So it wasn't just like, hody, hody, ho. I learned as I went along. But in those first calls, it wasn't me, it wasn't Pictionary, it was something out of my control.
What kind of strike rate did you have? I mean, for every 100 people that you pitched to, how many said yes?
Oh, wow. I would say probably about 25%. Yeah, of the 100. But again, we're dealing with people. I sold 100% of the toy store.
When you were getting rejected, there's all sorts of self-talk, and maybe you could speak to that a little bit, because I think I am missing my amygdala, because I stuttered as a kid. And, the amygdala is the emotional processing center of the brain. It's the almond-sized portion of the brain. And whenever I got rejected while building my first company, DJConnection.com, I can honestly say this. I didn't care, and every time I got rejected, it made me more fired up. And I don't know that was something that I was intentional about. Did you have like a book that you read that inspired you, a movie you saw? Did you have a mantra that you said? What kept you coming back?
What kept me coming back was the vision that I had for Pictionary. And I knew I had something special. I knew it was a great product. And so I just instinctively knew to keep going. And as I said, not to take things personally, not to try to understand what the other guy's thinking, try to understand where the buyer was coming from. You certainly want to try to offset their negativity and make the sale. But it was just this undying belief in what I was doing. And it was the positive self-talk at this point. First was the negative, now it was the positive. And so every time I'd get rejected, I can do this. I can do this. I'd get my courage back up, walk into the next store, just as excited.
Did you say things to yourself in your head? Did you talk to yourself?
Always.
Always.
Still do.
You still do? Okay. So,
Always.
So you are now getting some traction, getting some mojo.
Yep.
When was the first time where you were really getting a lot of sales where you thought to yourself, this may work? This is going to be huge. This is good. This is a thing. People know about this. When did you know this is a thing? Or when did you first run into somebody who owned your game that you didn't sell it directly to? Or when did you feel like you did it?
I know the answer. We started in Seattle. I was 26 years old, 1985, and about less than 24 months later, I'm in Europe. We've expanded to Europe. And we'd had a lot of success, and I heard a lot of stories in Seattle and the United States about how Pictionary touched their lives. But it still, for whatever reason, wasn't quite real. It was such a roller coaster. It was such a train that we were on. And then I remember this one time, the first time I went to France for the marketing team in Paris. And I was tired and couldn't quite get my head around what was going on and jet lag. So I went for a walk, put myself in timeout again. And I remember walking down the street, and I looked, and in this window randomly was Pictionary in French. And I remember I'm just kind of looking around like I'm on candid camera. And I look, and is anybody else seeing this? And it was that weird moment where I can still recall, I can still point to where it was in the window. I can remember the color, what I was wearing, everything. And I thought, oh my God, I did that. I invented that, and it's in a window in Paris, France. It was just this otherworldly moment.
Now, I understand that you started to run into copycats, cash flow troubles, people trying to steal your ideas. Could you walk us through how long, because you had the idea and it took you 3 years to get the thing to market, if I'm correct. How long in before you ran into cash flow problems and copycats?
Oh, the copycats, they don't start copying you until you're successful. So, stealing your idea is the most sincere form of flattery. Well, we trademarked and copyrighted the rules and the name, so nobody could steal our name, our intellectual property. And if they did, we went after them. But we couldn't stop people from creating drawing games because that you couldn't patent that. So there was 57 different knockoffs in the marketplace by the time we sold it to Mattel in 2001. But we were the first, we were the best. We had the brand and the name recognition, so nobody could dethrone us. So we were first to market in that. And as far as the cash flow problems, we borrowed to produce those 1,000 games, $1,000. Excuse me, $35,000. And that was enough to produce the 1,000 games, a little bit for marketing, and that was it. We didn't have any left over for salaries or anything else. So we used that money for proof of the product, and it worked. And so now our cash flow problem basically becomes an inventory problem. How do we scale this? Demand was bigger than we could afford, and so we had to go back to our investor to raise more capital. And without that, we would have been dead in the water. We weren't making enough in cash flow to pay for the next round of games. We couldn't keep going 1,000 games, 1,000. We had to do 10,000 to keep up with the current demand.
Now, you had an opportunity to sell the company to Milton Bradley, I believe, or knock out a licensing deal with Milton Bradley. Tell us about this opportunity and maybe why you chose to pass on it.
Yeah, this was one of those moments, those seminal moments in your life, your business life, that had a profound influence on the business. We did raise some capital. We were able to get the 10,000, but demand just exploded. And so the only way for us to scale the business was to license. So we give somebody the rights to manufacture, sell, market, and distribute the game, and they pay us a royalty for the rights. Okay, seems pretty straightforward. So we have a meeting with Milton Bradley, the biggest board game company in the world. And we walk into the meeting, and the marketing guy looks at us and slaps this thing, and they go boom on the table. And we look at it, and what is that? Well, it's a Pictionary game. Here's what we're going to do for you guys. We're going to change the packaging. We're going to change the graphics. We're going to change the rules. We're going to change some of the rules, and we're going to sell a ton of these. Okay. Well, we didn't really believe that was a good idea, but let's have conversation. So the contract came back from them with the biggest royalty rate they've ever given. And the one thing they wouldn't put in the contract that we demanded was they cannot change the packaging without our written approval. We didn't know what they were going to do with it. And here I am, I'm 26 years old, 27 years old, making $500 a month, and I'm driving a 10-year-old car. All I have to do is sign that contract. My partners were in agreement. We were in alignment that Milton Bradley did not share our vision of Pictionary. So what they were proposing was not in our best interest, and that certainly wasn't in Pictionary's best interest. So our vision from the start was to keep Pictionary what it was. Our vision was to recreate the fun and the excitement that I had when I was playing with my roommates and friends. Package that, and that would be success. That would give us some money. That would give us the success, give us the game sales. So here's Milton Bradley mucking with our vision. We said no. I turned it down.
Oh,
And and the kicker, we had no plan B. This wasn't like we had some other company going, okay.
were you
So
on the phone when you
we
told
were-
him no? Were you on the phone when you told him no? Were you face to face? Where were you when you told him no?
that was for us. That was hysterical. It was on a speaker box back in the day. It wasn't conferencing, so we're listening to this voice through this black box that we couldn't figure out who it was, what they were. Well, we knew what they were saying, and so we said, we need you to put this in writing. And they said we can't. We all looked at each other, and I literally pushed the stop button, muted them, kicked them off the call, and that was the end of it. That was the end of that call. But it was the right decision. We had no plan B. Our plan B was to go back to work to find out how we could get more games, how we could find some more capital to produce more games, because the popularity was exploding, even worse, even better. But it was not, as Simon Sinek calls it, it was not our just cause. We were willing to go back to waiting tables rather than give up on our cause and our vision.
And how many guys were with you on the team at this point?
I had 3 partners. One was a silent partner, my financier, and then I had 2 business partners. One was a graphic artist. One was the accountant, the CPA, the business side, and the 3 of us made this beautiful, beautiful team.
Did you guys all agree on the decision?
Yep.
You
we
did?
all shared, yes. We were totally aligned. There was never a time when one of us said, well, maybe we should. And for that, I am so grateful that we were all on the same page, that we were all shared the same vision of what we were going after. And it just made that decision, along with numerous other decisions. I mean, this was a big one, but there was many, many decisions that we had to make as an organization, that since we were shared the same vision, it made those decisions easier.
Now, let's talk about this for a second. Let's talk about this. So you then sold 38 million games before selling. How long did it take you, Chief, from when you first had the idea there, Robert, until you sold 38 million games? How many years? How long did it take you?
We launched June 1st, 1985, which in less than 2 months is the 35th anniversary of that launch. And we sold it almost 17 years later to Mattel. So it took 17 years to sell that many games.
17 years to get rich overnight? Is that right? To get rich quick?
Yeah, it just didn't show up one day.
Oh.
No, there were many hurdles, many problems. There was, a lot of positive, a lot of negative, just as like any business. I mean, we weren't special as far as that goes. It's how we dealt with it that made it different, made it unique. And so, over 17 years of blood, sweat, and tears, we were the biggest selling board game in the world for about 15 of those 17 years.
Now, what were what books did you read along the way? Were there a couple books along the way you read, or a couple movies you watched, or anything that kind of kept you encouraged along the way, or maybe a book you would reference recommend for our listeners?
I'm a big fan of the 4 Agreements.
The 4 Agreements.
A little more of a woohoo book. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
You read it?
Tell me, what's this book about? The 4 Agreements.
Well, it's just agreements you make with yourself. They're not earth-shattering. There's nothing you haven't heard before. But one of the agreements is don't take anything personally. So there's 4 simple agreements, and so that is without knowing it, that permeated my life, as I've discussed, as I've said. So I was living these things before I knew what I was doing. So that was a big one. Never Eat Alone is a good one for right now. Pete Ferrazzi, that's a good one. I recommend that one. Of course, Game Changer, which is my book coming out on the whole experience.
The book's called Game Changer. Check it out, folks.
But so there's a lot of good books out there.
Now let's talk about your book. Why did you decide to write this book?
It was time. I wanted to share with other entrepreneurs and just people that love Pictionary. I just wanted to share my experience, to show that, if you really tried, you take that first step, then anything is possible. It's inspirational that I went from waiting tables to creating this behemoth, and I just wanted to share that story with people and hopefully that.
And what's the title of the book one more time?
Game Changer.
Game Changer. Okay.
And then Game Changer.
In the book Game Changer, the story of Pictionary and how I turned a simple idea into the best-selling board game in the world. Did you do you talk about in the book selling the company, ultimately selling the company?
Yeah, for sure. That was to Mattel in 2001. That was a big moment as well.
Did you get $7 when you sold the company? Did you make $7?
I made $17.
Oof, sir! You get a mega point. You get a mega point.
No, yeah, it was time. The easiest way to put it. After 17 years, we'd become a stable brand and a mature brand, and I totally admit some of the passion was gone for the business. After 17 years. And so I thought the timing was right to do that. Plus, I had a young family that was becoming more important to me. And so just a bunch of different reasons all came together at the same time that kind of dictated the sale. And once again, partners were all on board with it.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. So your partners are all on it, and unless it's a published, unless it's a number that you want to talk about, I'm not going to ask you how much money you got there. But did anybody not want to sell it, or what did you guys? I mean, was it a universal decision that everybody wanted to sell it? Was anybody opposed to selling it?
We were all on the same page of selling it. I think my partners, one of them, would have been happy to continue, but it wasn't a forceful, I don't want to sell, let's not do it, I want to continue. I think he was still more, just to be perfectly honest, a little more engaged than I was. But ultimately, we were all on the same page. And after 17 years, it wasn't an insignificant amount of money. That didn't hurt.
And when you sold it, did you feel bad? Did you miss it ever? I mean, do you ever look back at it and go, God, I wish I still owned Pictionary?
I won't say that I missed it, but it was a big part of my life. If you include the creation, 20 years. It was like the longest relationship I've ever had, and so it was a labor of love when it started. So yeah, when I sold it, I look back on it all the time fondly, and so it was a part of my life and continued to be a part of my life after I sold it. But there was no regrets that I sold it when I did. That was the right decision for me. It was probably and possibly one of the few very selfish decisions I made with Pictionary. It was always us, my partners and I, Terry, Gary, and Rich, and we were all in agreement. And this is probably the one time about selling. If we weren't in agreement, I probably would have said something that it was time for me to do it.
Now, I have somebody here in the studio today by the name of Jonathan, who there's certain people that love the Civil War so much they dress up like the characters, and you go, are you really a Civil War reenactor? I mean, there's people that actually dress up, like Civil War people. There's people that love Marvel movies so much they dress up like it. There's so many people. There's people who love Star Wars so much they dress up like a Wookiee for like a 1 year before the movie comes out. John is like this with board games. No, he's into games. John will sit down with you and start a game of Monopoly, and he will not leave until he wins. And you might have a slow death. You might pass away 3 years into playing the game, but he will not stop until there's a clear winner. Jonathan, you've got here the founder of Pictionary. What questions do you have for Robert Angel, sir?
So, any new games in the horizon for you?
Ooh.
What's funny is I've been playing Pictionary more recently than I have in years. I'm playing Zoom Pictionary a ton. Over, like I said, over Zoom, FaceTime, whatever. I'm having a ball playing the game.
Are you winning?
No, I am, but I have fun. That's the beauty of Pictionary. That's one of the beauties of Pictionary is that you don't have to win or lose to have fun. So, am I having fun? Absolutely. Am I winning? Not so much. Not so much. But that's okay.
Jonathan, you're trying to. Jonathan has this is Robert. Let me tell you what Jonathan does. He doesn't hop on the show very much. But what he does is, you know how there's certain reporters that like to ask a question statement where they try to paint, the guest into a corner with a gotcha question. That's really what he lives for. So I'm going to allow him to ask you a few more questions. At any point, if you don't like the question, you can just hang up on him or I'll gong him. So, John, what's your next question for the founder of Pictionary?
Let's say that the founder of, or the creator of Monopoly was still alive, and you guys sat down at your dinner table, and you guys played Pictionary. Who would win that?
I've been asked a lot of questions. Got to tell you, it's the first. Who would win that? I'm just gonna go with myself.
Okay, and what about the other way around? If you had to play Monopoly with the creator of Monopoly, would you win that one?
Oof. I'll call that one a draw.
Nice.
I'd like to be a little confident and say that, I would be able to hold my own against that guy.
So, more serious question is: so you obviously are a inventor, you're a creator, and so do you find yourself just always having ideas of other, products or ideas that you would like to pursue in the past? Do you just carry like a notebook around where you write these down, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I'm a real big believer in writing things down, and it used to be in a notepad, but for several years now, I have I think it's called voice notes on my phone. And so when I have an idea, a thought, or anything I think is absolutely brilliant, I will just make a voice note and I'll get back to them. I don't look at them every day, but every week or so I'll just read through them and listen through them and see which makes sense. I mean, not every idea is a winner. Yeah. So I just like going down rabbit holes. It's kind of one of my superpowers is I go deep down a rabbit hole until I've either fleshed the idea out or realize it's not a good idea. But I do take notes for sure.
And so you obviously created Pictionary. You've written a book. And so what's kind of the next big thing for you? Do you already have that planned out?
I think, the book has been 5 years of labor of love and pain and sweat and tears. So I'm going to take the next year or so and promote the book. And one of the things that I'm really working a lot on is a speaking, and I don't even use the word speaking career. I love talking to college kids. I love talking to young people about my experience and motivating and inspiring them to be whoever it is they want to be. And that's my new passion. There's those entrepreneurs, we tend to get in our own heads and then we start thinking about all the things that everybody's telling us to do. And instead, I love being creative. I love now listening to other people's noises. And so my new thing is definitely sharing that experience and what I've learned, and hopefully have an impact and an influence on people.
Okay.
I really enjoy it.
Now, I have a question for you, sir, because I want to help. I want to tap into your genius here so that you can continue to make a big influence on our 500,000 listeners here. So I've got my final 3 questions coming in rapid fire, okay? When you were building
I'm ready.
Pictionary, what time did you start your day every day? I mean, how did you organize the first 4 hours of every day?
I did not organize the first 4 hours, but I did have a mindset every morning. I did 2 things. First mindset was I'd remind myself of what the vision of Pictionary was. And that was to create this game that had the same feeling that I had with my friends. And that dictated the decisions I made during the day. So when they would come in, I wouldn't have to panic and stress. I knew what it was. And 2, I told my mind and I said to myself, I don't know what's going to happen today. I'm just learning as I go. Every step is new. So when something new comes in, I'm not going to panic. I'm just going to figure it out, do the best I can, and learn from it. So instead of the panic mode all the time, I was in absorbing mode. And those 2 mindsets, when I started every day, set my day up for success.
Okay. So now, what time did you typically start your day?
I don't even have an answer for that question, except when I would get up. I mean, it was quintessential startup mode. I was working, 18, 20 hours a day.
Whoa. You said 18 or 20 hours a day you were working? Did I just hear you were correct, sir? Did you work 18 or 20 hours a day?
Heck no, 16 to 18 hours. How's that?
And I hear that so much from top entrepreneurs, that the level of sacrifice and dedication it requires to become super successful is always tremendous. And I don't think people realize how much work goes into building a great game like Pictionary, or a great brand, or a great business. Robert Angel, you are a great American. Your new book is in bookstores everywhere. You can buy it on Amazon.com. The book is called Game Changer: The Story of Pictionary.
You can pre-order. You can pre-order it on robangel.com. It's pre-ordered at Amazon right now. But robangel.com, you can get it. It's all good.
Brother, I appreciate your time. I really do appreciate you coming on this show and sharing the story of how you built one of the greatest games in American history.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And it was good fun. I appreciate that.
And now, folks, we'd like to end each and every show with a boom, because boom stands for big, overwhelming, optimistic momentum. And that's the kind of energy that was required to build Pictionary and to build any successful company. You've got to bring that big, overwhelming, optimistic momentum. And so, without any further ado, let's do it. 3, 2, 1, boom! Over the years, has it been a struggle to grow your business? Are you just kind of struggling to put everything you're learning together into a cohesive plan that you can actually implement? That sounds like me. What if you had access to a step-by-step proven plan taught by a business coach with a proven track record of helping thousands of entrepreneurs just like you to increase their profitability on a month-to-month basis? And what if my business coaching program had actually been coaching clients since before the Great Recession? What if you are working with a coach who knows how to coach you through difficult times? And imagine if this program was actually affordable. I'm talking about super affordable, like in a perfect world affordable, like less money than it would cost you to hire even one minimum wage full-time employee.
Yeah. Let me talk to the manager.
At a time where Inc. magazine now reports that by default, 96% of businesses will fail within 10 years, my clients grew last year at a rate of 104%. Yeah, 104%. But can you prove it? Check out thrivetimeshow.com and click on testimonials to see the faces of my real clients and to hear their real stories about how they've really grown their businesses. These are real people just like you, real moms, real dads, real daughters, real men and women that have actually grown their companies, on average by 104% this past year. How's that possible? Well, I personally take the time to write each and every business plan, which is why I only take on 160 clients. I then use my team to help you execute your plan for your business. And my team is great, including graphic designers, photographers, and videographers, web developers, search engine optimizers, and accounting coaches to help you get on top of your numbers. And they do all of this for less money than it would cost you to hire even one full-time minimum wage employee. Does it sound too good to be true? Just visit thrivetimeshow.com and click on the testimonials button and you'll see their stories. You'll see real people now having huge success. Schedule your one-on-one consultation with me right now by going to thrivetimeshow.com. Again, that's thrivetimeshow.com. Schedule your 13-point assessment with me. I'm going to spend about a half hour to an hour with you to figure out where you're stuck. Well, right now I'm having a mental block. Every time I try to go on them internets and go to thrivetimeshow.com, I find myself sending myself an MP3 via my new fax machine app on my new phone. Well, in that case, we probably can't help you, but for everybody else, we should be fine. Just go to thrivetimeshow.com and schedule a one-on-one consultation with me. I'm going to figure out your biggest limiting factors. I'm going to go through a 13-point assessment with you to find out where you're stuck, where your growth opportunities are, and I'm going to take the time needed to type out a step-by-step plan that we're going to help lead you down together. This is going to be your year to thrive, but you have to schedule that 13-point assessment right now by going to thrivetimeshow.com. Now, recently, my good friend John Lee Dumas from the Entrepreneurs on Fire podcast, which is one of the top 5 business podcasts of all time, he reached out to me and said, Clay, I'd like to have you on my show, and I'd like to ask you about why you coach your clients. And so now, without any further ado, here's the audio clip of John Lee Dumas interviewing me about why I continue to coach clients after all these years.
You've long ago achieved financial freedom, achieved time freedom, and that's amazing things. And a lot of people who are listening might be like, why is this guy not on a beach in Puerto Rico, just like sipping Mai Tais and like just relaxing? What motivates you to coach your clients? What is the real reason?
Well, I got several reasons, but I believe and I know it is entirely possible to go to college, to earn a degree, and to learn very little about how to earn money. In fact, as a general rule, most of the general education out there is kind of like it's like memorizing the History Channel. It's like you learned a lot about the Byzantine Empire, and it might be fascinating, but it's not wealth creating. And I grew up in a home where my dad delivered pizzas at Domino's. He worked the night shift at Quick Trip convenience stores to pay the bills. And I sincerely mean this. I thought that my father didn't like me until I was able to hire him when I was 27 years old. And I was talking with my dad, and I'm like, Dad, why were you always working? He's like, to put food on the table. Now, my dad has a college degree from Oral Roberts University. And imagine what that felt like as a kid. And a lot of your listeners can relate to this. My dad just worked his ass off constantly because he wanted to provide. But my dad wasn't one of those dads who comes home and goes, that's right, I've been working for you. He was a quiet guy. He just worked. And from the age of 27, when I hired my dad, he's like, what do you want? What am I going to do for you, son? I said, you can just come be a dad. I'll put you on payroll. You can help me with the books. I need someone I can trust. He moved from Minnesota to Tulsa to come work with me. And when he died of Lou Gehrig's on September 5th, 3 years ago, I can honestly say I had no regrets. I got all that time with my dad. And there's so many people out there that are exchanging all of their time for very little money. And that just makes zero sense. And if you're gonna go out there today and hire a minimum wage employee, let's say you're in the great state of Michigan or something, okay? You hire an employee for $12 an hour, $11 an hour. Let's say you're in Oklahoma, you hire someone for $7.25 an hour. If you hire somebody for $12 an hour after payroll taxes and they work for you 40 hours a week for 4.3 weeks a month, that means that you're going to pay that person $2,064 a month before factoring in payroll taxes and providing them an office and all the costs of hiring them and finding them and recruiting them. And you know what I mean? There's a lot of costs, hidden costs associated with hiring somebody. And for less money than it would cost you to hire even one full-time minimum wage employee, we can change your life and we will change your life. And I am serious about it. My dad recently died, and that's not fun, but man, how terrible would my life have been if I didn't have certain key mentors in my life? And I'll tell you this, none of my mentors reached out to me. I had to go pay these people. I paid Michael Levine, the PR consultant for Michael Jackson and Prince and Nike, best-selling author Michael Levine. He worked with Charlton Heston. I paid Home Skillet $25,000 to teach me how PR works. $25,000. And it was worth every dollar of it because now I can get my clients like Josh with Living Water Irrigation on the Kelly Clarkson Show and the Today Show, and I can get clients like OxyFresh on Fox News. I know how to do it now. But $25,000. I paid Bruce Clay, I think it was $8,000 a month for 12 consecutive months to learn how search engines work. I mean, and I'm glad I did, but JLD, that's some money right there. And I paid as I went.
That's some dough.
I paid some money. And if I was right now and I wanted to be a podcaster, I'd pay you to learn how to podcast because it turns out you know how to podcast. And then if I didn't have the motivation to keep podcasting every day, I'd pay you whatever that fee is. I'd call and go, JLD, how'd you stay motivated when you had 2 downloads a week? Because remember that when you started, the momentum was against you. Before you met Kate, you're getting that momentum going. It's you against the world. You're recording. You got 2 downloads a week, maybe 5 a week. And then all of a sudden people go, oh, man, must be nice. And you go, yeah, I enjoyed the process, but people don't see the messy middle. The messy middle is the gap between the result that you want to get to and the dream that you just had last night. And somebody has to bridge the gap. And most people who are successful like to travel, not me. So most people who who are successful like to go on vacations, not me. They like to go to NFL games, not me. They like to go to parties, not me. They have hobbies and other interests, not me. It's just my wife, my 5 kids, and growing companies. That's all I got. If you're looking for a guy who's the most interesting man in the world, That's not me. But I live behind a wall at Camp Clark and Chicken Palace, where I myopically focus on my clients, and I feel it's a calling from the Latin word meaning the word vocation, meaning calling. I feel like I'm called to do this, and this is what I was called to do. I'm almost 40 years old. I don't know how many more years I have left on this great planet, but this is what I'm going to do. I'll be a 70-year-old doing this, and my hero in the game of business is Paul Graham. Paul Graham's my hero. If you Google search Paul Graham, he's the coach behind Airbnb, Dropbox, and Reddit. And he was the one who kind of paved the way for what I want to do. And Paul Graham's my inspiration.
Fire Nation, if you are literally not pressing pause right now and visiting thrivetimeshow.com/EOFire, check your pulse. I mean, with what Clay just shared, with the immense amount of free value that he's delivering to you on that site, it's just unbelievable. The assessment, the website check, the books, all the jazz, his passion transferred to you and your business, injecting it, especially during these crazy times, Fire Nation. This is what you need. So you know this, Fire Nation. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and you've been hanging out with CC and JLD today. So keep up that heat and head over to thrivetimeshow.com/EOFire. The next stage in your life, Fire Nation, the next stage in your business starts at the end of that URL. Hit it, make it happen. Clay, Josh, thank you both for sharing your truth, your value with Fire Nation today. For that, we salute you, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Take care.